Friends, please join me in prayer. God of mercy and grace, bless us this morning as we engage with a faithful witness of these scriptures. We ask this in Jesus' precious name. Amen. So when I started thinking about my sermon for today and a title, I'm really awful with sermon titles. At first I thought about political peer pressure. But then I took the political part out because I didn't want people's first thought to be, when they heard political, to hear partisan. I know I'm on an emailing list where every week I get a couple sermons by some different big name preachers. It's like a fan site for ministers, right? So this week, with this particular passage, there was a number of the American preachers who were very political in their sermon with the run-up to the fall elections they're having. Because sometimes, when a nation is sharply divided, these kind of things happen. In truth, it is all but impossible not to have your sermons be somewhat political. But we do work very hard for them not to be partisan. The word political in its truest form, of course, relates to ideas and activities that influence how we understand ourselves and thus to how we govern society. And you see that in our reading from 1 Samuel this morning. The people of Israel, they want to transition from being this collective of tribes who are each governed by a judge, which was also sometimes a priest, and they wanted to transition to a structure where they were all coming together as one nation under a king. And the reasoning for wanting to make this transition was so that they could be like everybody else. All the nations around them were ruled by a king, and so they wanted a king as well. Hence the almost title, political peer pressure. The reasoning of everyone else is doing it is a pretty weak rationale for such a major transition. And so the prophet, priest, judge Samuel, he tries to reason with them and talk them out of making this big change. Up to that point, a system of judges held the belief that even though each of the tribes were somewhat independent from each other, they were actually ruled by God. Israel had what we would call a theocracy. So Samuel's heartbreak was that the people, they desired to move from having a divine king, or God as their king, to a human king, and turning their back on God. Now the situation, to be clear, is very complex. There was significant corruption happening within the tribal leaderships at this point. And remember last week we talked about Eli being replaced by Samuel because Samuel's sons were corrupt, and that God had not spoken very much anymore, so God chooses Samuel to be his prophet. Well, reforms still needed to happen because, ironically, Samuel finds himself in a situation similar to Eli, in which his own sons have also become corrupt with power. So all this corruption was happening. The problem was that rather than well thought out reforms, the people wanted a quick change. And the quick change that they thought would be just the perfect answer was to have a king. And they wanted to just jump to that without thinking through the consequences of what this decision might mean. So God tells Samuel to let them know the reality of what it's going to be if they have a king. So Samuel tries to reason with them, and he warns them by saying, as we read this morning, that the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. He'll take your sons and make them servants and serve his chariots. And he'll make them run in front of his chariots, and your male and your female servants and the best of your cattle, and so on and so forth. He'll take a tenth of your flock, and you'll become like his slaves. He said, like, first the king's going to take from the people to build infrastructure. Then he's going to take from the people to build armies. And then he's going to take from you to maintain those armies. And even in peaceful times, he's going to take in order to prepare for the next time the armies need it. Basically, Samuel warns them that whether a king is benevolent or a tyrant, they would be completely at the mercy of his whims. The best will always go to the king, and the people will have to make do with what's left over. But no, the people insisted that a king would actually just be the solution to all their problems. And when Saul, we know, is finally crowned, it starts out good, but it ends badly. Be careful what you wish for. But that's, of course, getting ahead of our story. But let's be clear here. When the people ask for a king, they're not looking for someone who's going to lead them in peace. What they're asking for is a military leader like all the other nations have, who would amass for them wealth and property for their nation, while providing security against all these other nations who were at that point technologically advanced to Israel. So as we study this ancient text and we seek to learn from our biblical forebears, we can't avoid the question of, what are we willing to give up in return for vague promises of wealth and security? And that question, that's a personal question, a denominational question, it's a political question. Because we know that God says, trust me. God says, follow me. And sometimes we say, but look what everyone else is doing. Look how rich and happy and successful those other nations are, God. We want what they have. And some modern Samuel-type prophet will counter that you're not seeing the true or the full picture. And Christians say, like, no, we don't want to hear that. I just want the quick and easy solution. I want the quick and easy answer. And in our society, more and more, we are coming under significant pressures to turn from God and instead put our faith in humanity. Even when we see the evil side of humanity. And when we see the evil side of humanity and we still want to choose it, that only works if we convince ourselves that we're not really blessed. That God does not really bless us, that we reject the goodness that God has bestowed upon us, and we convince ourselves that there are other things. There are wealth and recognition and material possession. Those are the true blessings. Those are the true key to happiness. And it doesn't matter who is oppressed or left behind if we can only acquire that status. Now, deep down, we always know it's a lie. But we want it so bad. We want it so bad that sometimes we're willing to lie to ourselves that it's true. And we say, sorry, faithful God. We just want what the other nations have. And God, some guy on late night TV or on the internet told me that not only can I have it, that I can have everything I want, but I deserve it. Cultural peer pressure, economic peer pressure, political peer pressure. But let me take that down a notch to something even more relatable. One of my Facebook friends, whom I love dearly with all my heart, she often posts about her absolutely idyllic life, her romantic and attentive husband, her beautiful and accomplished children, her lovely, spacious home where she gets up early and she bakes them bread and pies, and her vacation to places that I've never been. And there is a piece of me that just gets so jealous. Especially on weeks like this past week when, the whole collective resources of my whole household were just like stretched to the limit with pastoral needs. And I look at, her fresh baked bread and pies, and I think, man, I am too tired to even empty my dishwasher, let alone bake a pie. I actually don't even know how to bake a pie. But if I did, I would bake one for my family. So I started feeling this mild peer pressure that I should be better, that I should have more of what she has. But here's the thing. Well, two things, actually. One, I love her so much. I love her and I want good things for her. I want her to be happy. And secondly, I know that for as much as all those pieces about her life that I listed are true, her life's not perfect. She and her husband have their struggles, their ups and downs like all the rest of us. And truly, I don't want her life. I actually like my own life. But how easily it is to start to fall in that trap of feeling I need what someone else has. And that's in relation to someone I love dearly. Now imagine when I start thinking it in relation to someone that I can barely stand. So let me zoom back out again into the macro view. We want to see other churches and other denominations grow and do well, don't we? We want them to be blessed like we are. And what if they're more blessed? And we want other nations to have food security and educated populations to live without violence. But what if we have to share our resources? Political peer pressure, right? It's hitting you from all sides, relating to the ideas and the activities that influence how it is that we view ourselves and how we view others. Do we want to be different? Or do we want to just blend in with all the cultures around us? Samuel's warnings to the ancient peoples of Israel still has merit for us. So as I wrap up our own reflection time, I am not going to give you an easy dichotomy. Choose this or choose that. There's no such thing, really. This is the good right answer and this is the wrong bad answer. It doesn't work that way. When we ask ourselves, who will we be in this world? What will we stand for? What does God want, for us and from us? The thing is, friends, it's complex. It's complex because we are complex, and the world we live in is complex, and the answers to all those questions are complex. I guess the easy answer is always Jesus. But Jesus is only the beginning of that answer. It takes a lifetime relationship with Jesus to delve deeper and to start such discernments. And questions require discernment. The world around us is always changing. Something new is always happening. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's just the way it is. It's just that in churches and as Christians, as God's people and God's people in the world, we need to be smart about and discern what it is we're going to say, what it is we're going to do, and how we are going to be. And we need to be prayerfully discerning all those steps along the way. So next week, we're going to start talking about David. I told you this is kind of a lead into the life of David. So next week, we're actually going to introduce David into this picture because he's a big piece of this transition from kings and into kings. And so we say, may God bless us as we continue the study. Thanks be to God. Amen.